So I've had my eye on this video for a while now and I kept putting it off, until now. Here's a video that attempts to explain why global warming is a hoax, and it does so by doing robotic voices for two animal characters. Sorry that I'm making you guys sit through this, there aren't too many good climate change denying videos out there. Anyway, let's begin.
I am shivering harder than Charlie Rangel in an IRS audit.
You can say that again. It is cold enough to freeze the nuts off my Prius.
You own a Prius? Why did you buy that expensive ugly piece of crap?
I am helping to save the world.
You mean you actually still believe in the anthropogenic global warming hoax? Over the past 4.5 billion years, the Earth has obviously gone through many natural cycles of warming and cooling.
This is probably the number one argument that deniers of climate change bring up, that the Earth has gone through periods of warming and cooling in the past, millions and billions of years ago. While yes, this is true, it shouldn't be used to reflect the warming trend we are seeing today, because it is much steeper and happening at a much higher rate than it ever was. Think of it this way, if the climate changes slowly, organisms and ecosystems as a whole can adapt. Natural selection usually takes care of it. However, if the climate changes too quickly over a short period of time, environmental pressures are too high for adaptations, and species will end up going extinct. And that doesn't just apply to global warming too. It also applies to various other human activities, such as plastics in the environment, aerosol pollutants, deforestation, etc. It's happening at an alarming rate and many populations are dying off because of it. Change itself isn't necessarily bad, but change at a high rate can be. And that's what we see with the rising CO2 levels.
Carbon dioxide levels are rising and global temperatures are rising too. Therefore, man-made carbon dioxide is destroying the planet.
That is faulty logic. Do you also believe that people holding umbrellas will cause it to rain?
No, I do not.
Well, that is the same logical construct.
I know what he's going to say here. He's going to say that temperature rises cause CO2 level increases. He's going to go into more detail later, so let's wait for that. Besides, it's not the first time we've addressed that claim on this channel.
Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Greenhouse gases trap heat, and that is why carbon dioxide is causing global warming.
Yes, I mentioned this before, but greenhouse gases have a specific property in which they can absorb infrared rays and cause their bonds to vibrate. They can hold onto and release large amounts of energy compared to regular gases. This has been shown to without a shadow of a doubt, and it is the principle behind greenhouses, which means ultimately there is a causal relationship between carbon dioxide and temperature. Scientists have mapped out this effect. They have made predictions with models of carbon dioxide emissions. After all the models that scientists have created, deniers have done nothing but try to disprove or undermine them. Where are your own models? Where are your CO2 prediction graphs? Where are your calculations on how trends will look like in the future? Where are your explanations on what controls temperature fluctuations? Of course, it's not that you need to come up with your own claims to dismiss the claims of others, but how much of science do you really know if the only thing you can do is deny the overwhelming scientific consensus? Let's be clear. Simply saying that science is wrong is one thing, but to go out of your way and claim that climate change isn't happening or won't have any detrimental effects is another.
Do you happen to know how little atmospheric carbon dioxide there is?
No, I do not.
There is only 365 parts per million, which is a minuscule amount.
As of now, in 2018, carbon dioxide has spiked to over 400 parts per million. This video is slightly old, so I won't hold you accountable for that. But from that, can't you see how quickly CO2 levels have been increasing? It has increased more than 45% since the Industrial Revolution, and this has been the highest in the last few hundreds of thousands of years. So, Mr. Pig Guy, what's your response to this?
Moreover, 93% of annual carbon dioxide emissions are naturally released from soil and water, so only about 7% of total annual carbon dioxide is from man-made sources. Accordingly, even if man-made carbon dioxide emissions were cut to zero, it would only reduce the minuscule amount of total carbon dioxide levels by a paltry 7%, which does not mean diddly squat.
It's true that natural sources release much more carbon dioxide into the air compared to humans, but here's the thing. When nature puts CO2 into the air, it also has a mechanism to take it out. That is part of the carbon cycle, such as having trees reabsorb the CO2. What humans are doing is that we are inputting carbon dioxide into the environment without introducing an artificial method to eliminate it. Nature indeed does have a negative feedback loop itself, but humans don't, and that's the difference. Before the Industrial Revolution, natural factors increased and decreased carbon dioxide levels. Humans have only increased it, and that has detrimental effects, especially since we're doing it so rapidly. Of course, the natural feedback loop does eliminate some of the CO2 we emit, but that can lead to many other negative consequences such as ocean acidification, which I talked about in my first video on climate change.
Well, maybe carbon dioxide is a very strong greenhouse gas that does not take much to cause a greenhouse effect?
No, ignorant slut. The greenhouse effect of carbon dioxide is very small. Atomic absorption spectroscopy analysis shows that carbon dioxide is only capable of absorbing 7% of the infrared electromagnetic spectrum in the 15 micrometer frequency range, which means it only has a very weak greenhouse effect.
Oh.
It is true that carbon dioxide is a weaker greenhouse gas compared to, say, methane, but it's not the potency per unit of CO2 that matters. It's the amount of CO2 in the air. Even if CO2 is a weaker greenhouse gas, its sheer concentration in the air and the amount that humans are emitting is what's causing global warming to occur. This is a dumb argument. Let's keep going.
Then what is the major greenhouse gas?
Water vapor. Using the same atomic absorption spectroscopy analysis, the greenhouse gas effect of water vapor is about 850% stronger than carbon dioxide. Moreover, there is approximately 2,100,000% more water vapor in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide.
I'm kind of tired of deniers bringing up the water is a stronger greenhouse gas argument. Yes, water vapor is stronger and is at a higher concentration. Nobody denies that. But the answer to this is the same as the counter to deniers bringing up natural sources of carbon dioxide. Water vapor has natural cycles, namely the water cycle. Water that is too concentrated in the atmosphere will eventually rain down back to Earth. Too little water in the atmosphere will increase evaporation rates. This cycle acts so fast that any fluctuations in water vapor concentrations are quickly returned to normal levels. Carbon dioxide from human emissions, on the other hand, doesn't work that way because humans are only introducing CO2, not eliminating any. So while water contributes to the majority of Earth's greenhouse effect, it is stable, unlike human-emitted carbon dioxide.
What about methane? I have heard scientists mention this greenhouse gas.
Well, remember when I told you that carbon dioxide is measured in parts per million?
Yes.
Well, methane concentrations are in parts per billion.
Yes, it's true that methane levels are in parts per billion, but that doesn't mean it doesn't play a role. Not to mention that methane has almost tripled in concentration since the Industrial Revolution, and is the highest in the last few hundreds of thousands of years. And in case you're wondering, yes, humans emit methane as well, from oil and gas industries. And large amounts of methane emissions can contribute to spikes in temperatures, even if methane doesn't stick around in the atmosphere for as long as CO2 does, because it is 100 times more potent. When we look at methane, it usually contributes to a large effect over a short period of time, and then its effects dissipate due to negative feedback loops, compared to carbon dioxide, which has a much smaller effect per unit of time, but has a much longer lasting effect. Of course, other than warming, methane has various other consequences. For example, methane travels up to the stratosphere, where it is broken down to CO2 and water, which ultimately breaks down the ozone layer. Fun to think about, isn't it?
If carbon dioxide and methane do not have a significant greenhouse effect, then why are carbon dioxide levels rising in tandem with global temperatures?
The answer is outgassing. Outgassing is a chemical property of gases suspended in a medium, where more gas is released the warmer the medium holding the gas becomes.
Alright, well, I've already addressed this claim in a previous video, so it'd be redundant if I were to repeat it. But basically, yes, temperature increases can cause CO2 levels to rise, but that doesn't mean CO2 levels don't also cause global temperatures to rise. There is a positive feedback loop when it comes to global warming, which is why I always stress how dangerous this can be. When temperatures rise, CO2 does too, and that causes further warming. In the past, there were increases in solar activity, which caused warming. This warming caused CO2 levels to increase, and this may have made it seem that CO2 was lagging behind temperature changes. But then after CO2 concentrations were high, that caused further warming in a positive feedback loop. So yes, although you could find examples in Earth's history where CO2 levels lagged behind temperature increases, it still contributed to the further warming of the planet because of this positive feedback loop. Humans emitting carbon dioxide will simply just skip that first step and warming will occur.
But should we not try to cut carbon dioxide levels? Because the EPA says carbon dioxide is a poisonous gas, right?
Wrong again. Carbon dioxide is actually an essential plant food, and it would be better if carbon dioxide levels actually rose substantially from current levels.
Carbon dioxide is plant food, yes, but their ability to absorb CO2 plateaus as the gas increases in concentration. I went over this also in a previous video, so let's just skip it.
Well, if carbon dioxide levels are not causing global warming, then what is?
I will give you a hint. What is the hottest object in our solar system?
Brad Pitt?
No, I'm talking celestial, not terrestrial. Try again.
The sun.
Yep, and what else?
Water vapor, right.
You go girl, right again.
The sun does contribute to temperature fluctuations, yes, and there are plenty of instances in the past where this has happened. See, there are many different factors that affect climate, and the sun is one of them, but to blame everything on the sun is ignorant at best. The temperature trends we see are not due to the result of solar irradiation, because that has been relatively constant for the last 40 years, as measured by satellites, but yet temperatures are still increasing. Anyway, there isn't really much else interesting to discuss for the rest of the video. I'll definitely be revisiting this topic again later, and hopefully we'll dive more into the actual research behind climate change and how deniers are misrepresenting them. Subscribe if you haven't already to keep updated on what's to come. I would like to thank Nathan Gower and Fireshard for being top patrons. You guys, along with every other patron, make my activity here on YouTube possible. Thank you so much.